morning sun where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and room, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to our live Q&A. We do this every Monday, same time. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a reoccurring member, welcome as well. Basically, this is a space for you to come with your plant problems. If there's anything that you're struggling with, if there's any plants that are dying on you, or even if you're just curious to learn more about garden design, maybe you have a runner that you're working on, or a particularly hard garden project, we welcome any and all gardening questions, and it's really simple. Basically, all you have to do is just drop a question in the comments below, and then I'm going to ask them to Chris, who will then answer them. So we run these for about 45 minutes. It's a first in, first served kind of premise. So if you want to make sure that you definitely get your question answered, make sure to get in sooner rather than later. We'd really love it if you could share this with your friends and family. We want to try and help as many people as possible and reach as many people as we can. We'd love to just make sure that our audio is sounding good. If you could just give us a thumbs up in the comments or a yes or anything like that, just so I can make sure that you are hearing us okay. How are you doing today, Chris?
Great, thanks. Actually, I was wondering, do you know that little story of how we got the Hello Hello trademark?
No, I don't. Tell it to me.
Okay. What happened is that I was at a workshop where we were working on an advertising campaign for Hello Hello, and these chaps, I had some top ad writers from all around the country, and a couple of them from New Zealand, and they're all working as a team to help me make a really great ad. And anyway, I started to record the very first ad myself, and this ad writer from New Zealand, he said, Chris, he said, you know, when you start talking like that, he said, you sound really dopey. He said, you sound like some really dopey person from the country in New Zealand. And he said, when the dopey people from the country in New Zealand ring up, they go, hello, hello, to see if they can hear themselves on the radio. And he said, I think you should start your ad off like that. At any rate, I did that. My very first ad, I did hello, hello, and it was a sensation. People went crazy. A mate of mine said he was driving his truck early in the morning to work, and he said he nearly crashed because he suddenly thought I was in the truck with him going, hello, hello. He suddenly thought, oh, Chris, what's going on? And so that was how the hello, hello took off. This guy said I sounded a bit dopey and sounded like the sort of a New Zealand farmer ringing up trying to get on the radio.
Well, that's definitely one of the more interesting backgrounds to how to get a company name. We already got some questions filing in, so we're going to start straight away so we can try and answer as many as possible. First question is, what vegetables would you put in Melbourne now, please?
Okay, so cabbages, broccoli, it's still tiny. You can still get a lettuce, you know, lettuces can still go in, but your cabbages, your broccoli, your spinach, silver beet, all your greens are good to put in now. And you're probably you could certainly do spring onions. You might be a little bit late for doing onions, a bit late for carrots, but certainly all of your greens, your broccoli, cabbage, and silver beet and spinach, and rocket's the other thing. Rocket doesn't do so good in the heat, and rocket's a great source of salad greens, and they grow like a weed once you get them out there. So rocket would be really, really good to put in right now.
Perfect.
And also, just one last thing, the snow peas too.
Amazing. So you got a whole range there. Next question is from Trevor. How do you get rid of ants in a garden?
Well, you sort of have to question why you want to get rid of ants, because like ants are part of, like, it's part of the natural habitat, and unless they're really causing some sort of a problem, but in the supermarket you can buy a little thing called ant red, and it's kind of a nasty little chemical that you put out, and the ants eat it, and they take it back to their nest, and it kill the whole nest. And so it's but unless ants are causing me a real problem, I always leave them there because they're kind of part of the ecology out there.
Yeah, fair, exactly. The next question is best tips for doing a garden on a budget.
Okay, garden, but well, what you would do is you would start off by cultivating. Well, I guess the very first thing you do is you'd start a really nice compost heap. You'd start cultivating that area or the areas where you want to have your garden. Mark out your garden. Our free gardener zone, which you do pay a deposit with, is a great way to get started if you're not sure what to do. And I love budget gardens because I love the creativity that it takes to make a nice garden on a budget. But the other thing that you would do is that what you'd find in any given week, there's always some stock that's being cleared. There's always some really cheap stuff in the nursery, and so you don't go in and buy all your plants on one day. You make a regular outing to the nursery and you pick up the bargains. Like this week, there's a weeping cherry for $69.99. So that's really great. They're $150 down at Bunnings. So what you do is you don't buy all on the one day, but you come through the nursery regular, make it a regular outing going to the nursery, and buy what's on special. So buy what's on special, and the other thing, I mean, if you just came and talked to me here, like brought in some photos and things like that, or did the free garden design, or lots of people. I had person after person coming on the weekend when I was between garden designs, and they were all getting little kind of tiny garden designs off me. I love to help with something like that. And so if somebody came and showed me a photo on the weekend, I'd say, look, I want to fill this up and I only want to spend $50. I love the challenge.
Amazing.
I love the challenge, and I could help somebody do that.
Perfect. Next question is from B. Why are my Monstera seedling leaves turning brown?
They are a shade lover. They might need a bit of, so it would either be too much sun or not enough water, or a combo of too much sun and not enough water, like as a combo problem. I would move them into, I'd get them out of the hot afternoon sun and increase their water flow a little bit.
B says they're already in a shaded area.
Right, okay, so then I would just increase the water. And also you could do some liquid fertilizer on them. If you go out early in the morning and do some sort of liquid fertilizer, something like Power Feed, that could really strengthen and help them. So more water and something like Power Feed on the foliage early in the morning when the evaporation rate is low.
Yeah. Next one is, how do you prune Hydrangea's macrophilia?
Okay, I'll tell you how not to prune them. And that kind of then gives you a clue as to how you might prune them. Every so often I get somebody come in and say, oh, look, I bought a Hydrange 4 years ago. It's never had a flower. Never had a flower. Now, the trick to how that happens is what people do, they see that big shaggy growth on their macrophylla and they shear it off. And what happens is that, and they'll shear it off in the middle of summer when it's all tall and scraggly, and what happens is that the flower buds were in that summer growth. So what happens is when you shear off everything, you shear it off in a nice round bush, it'll bush up, it'll be nice and green and lush, but it'll have no flowers. And so how you prune your Hydrange is that you need to keep them down in size, but each year, say in summer or autumn, you go through and you cut off half of the shoots and leave half of the shoots long and lanky, and that half that you leave long and lanky will have the flowers next season, and the ones that you cut will be for the following season flowers. So you're flowering on second year wood, and so you can only cut half of it off in any given year to have the flowers each year. Mm-hmm. So the way not to have flowers is really the answer is you chop off everything and you have nothing.
Yep. All right, moving on to the next question. B would like to know, what do I do if my frangipani leaves go yellow?
Say it's a real tropical frangipani, I would say that they're quite a hungry plant, and I would say that there's need for some Osmocote or maybe a bit of liquid fertilizer like Power Feed. I'd get some food into them. I'd increase the water, so a bit more water and a bit more food, and maybe a liquid fertilizer and Osmocote. So something like Power Feed and Osmocote together should stop the leaves from going yellow.
Yeah. Anna wants to know, how do you start an edible garden that you can eat from year round?
Well, what you need is you really need a little bit of everything. So you need to really, if I was going to start an edible garden where I could eat all year round, I think the best company in Australia to deal with would be Diggers Seeds, and I'd sign up as a member. And the chap that owns Diggers Seeds, he's done some really good work for the. He's preserved a lot of very old species of plants, the heritage species. He's done a lot of good work. He's really advanced Australian horticulture, and but I'd become a member of that, and I'd get their regular mail outs, and they you can use them as a guide. They supply seeds and they supply little cuttings and plants and things like that, and you can use them as a guide. You don't have to use all of their stuff, but they have very, very good products. And that would be my starting point for year-round, is join Diggers Seeds.
Yeah, perfect. Next one is, I'd love to know what some good plants are for clay soil.
Okay. There's plants that hate clay, plants that tolerate clay, and plants that love clay. And now, plants that love clay are like for a hedge, your Photinia is very, very good, loves the clay. Most of your grasses, most of like your native grasses and things like that are great in the clay. Things like, which is really sort of a glorified grass, is your Nandina is really good in your clay. Your Dietes, that sort of butterfly grass, I think people call it, or wild iris, your Dietes fabulous in the clay. Most of your callistemons are really good in the clay. So your callistemons, lovely red flowers and things like that. And I love the Little John callistemon, which is a nice little dwarf one with red flowers. So callistemons, as a small tree, like your water gum luscious, really good clay lovers. Your agonis, and there's lots of different nice varieties of agonis great in the clay. So they're all clay lovers. But with all plants, getting them going in the clay, I like to dig a nice big hole and mix a bit of potting mix in and just give them a bit of a good start. And a bit of potting mix, maybe a bit of Osmocote, and you're away in business.
Perfect. Deirdre wants to know, how do I get my peace lily to flower? What fertilizer?
Okay. One of the great secrets of getting not just a peace lily, but I found it works on everything, is somebody put me onto it years ago, but Miracle-Gro is a very American fertilizer, and it's designed really for Americans who love their annuals, because they have those very cold winters and warm summers. They love their annuals, and Miracle-Gro has got almost toxic volumes of phosphorus in it, and what it does is that it's designed so people plant their annuals, use a nitrogen-rich fertilizer to get them going, and then as soon as they reach the size they want, they switch over to Miracle-Gro, and Miracle-Gro slows the growth and pushes the flowers out. And I've used Miracle-Gro on all sorts of plants to get them to either flower or flower and fruit, and it's really, really good. And I think if you were to use Miracle-Gro regularly on your peace lily, it would get it to flower.
Perfect. McCormick wants to know, what do you recommend for a fast-growing evergreen tree for shade in Wangaratta? Clay soil on a 1-acre property.
Okay, you could not possibly beat an Ulmus turalensis. You could plant an Ulmus turalensis that was only 1 metre tall at the moment, and a year from now it'd be 5 metres tall. And but what it's going to need, it's a clay lover. Back to that clay, what loves clay? Ulmus love clay. Ulmus is It's a tree that's kind of slight. It's just kind of related a little bit to a poplar, related a little bit to a birch in that same sort of area there. Very, very interesting tree. Absolutely thrives in the clay, and you didn't hear it wrong. You could plant a 1 metre tree now and have it 5 metres in 1 year. You'd have it 7 or 8 metres in 2 years, and it could be casting a beautiful big shadow in 3 years. So amazing tree. It's like those sort of wonder trees you see in American magazines. They're absolutely incredible trees. Their root system is a little bit aggressive. So if you had said that you're on a quarter acre block and you want the tree close to the house, I wouldn't have said ulnus. But when you said you're on an acre block, you've got to get them away from the house a little bit because they do have a very aggressive root system. But nothing else grows like an ulnus. And what's amazing is that garden beds and lawns and things thrive under the ulnus because it actually takes nitrogen from the atmosphere and puts it into the ground. So it actually enriches the ground that it's in. High water requirement, aggressive roots are the downsides, but unbelievable growth and a really beautiful tree. My dad really introduced the evergreen alder, or Ulmus geraldinensis, into the Australian market, and this was back in the 70s, and he marketed as the evergreen silver birch. So it's got that sort of slightly weeping habit and that charm of a silver birch, but unbelievable growth.
Incredible. Johnny says that his avo is stunted, and I believe it's Phytophthora root rot. I've tried Yates, anti-rot, and copper tips.
So what's stunted?
His avocado.
Avocado, right. And it's stunted from Phytophthora. I wonder if you didn't dig it up in the late autumn and dig a really big hole for it, like dig a really big hole, mix lots of potting mix, lots of good loose soil, and then finish it off in a mound of beautiful loose soil, deep, like sort of, 70, 80 centimetres deep and 2 or 3 metres wide, really lovely loose soil. I'm sure that you could get your avocado growing in the right soil. I think that the Phytophthora disease is probably due to sort of stress of maybe lack of drainage, lack of oxygen. I've only ever seen nice avocados in good soil, so I think they're a tree that requires good soil.
Amazing. And just on to the next question from Salt. I have a grafted lemon lime tree and have never pruned it. When is it a good time to do that?
Really, if it was just a light prune, I'd do it right now. And what's very important, when you have like a lemon lime, what tends to happen, it's like a seesaw will go on. What'll happen, one year the lime will try and take over from the lemon, and then the next year the lemon will try and take over from the lime. And the trick is with the pruning is to not let one overtake the other. So you've got to kind of look at them and balance them every year and give them their own sort of space. But if I was to do a heavy prune, I would do a heavy prune in September. So heavy prune in September, light prune now.
Next question is, can you recommend some cottage plants that are safe to plant together with edible plants, please?
Cottage plant. Okay, so lavender, rosemary, most of your sages go really, really nicely. So lavender, rosemary, sage, and I think also like you've got some beautifully fragrant geraniums. They would all be, really nice perennials to mix in with your vegetables.
Beautiful. Another question about pruning, but this is tips on pruning orange trees.
Right. What have they asked? They just want to ask for tips.
Yep.
Okay. The most just for general fruit production, you barely need to touch your orange. But if your orange is starting to get too big, the thing is to stay on top of it and keep trimming it, so that you never have to hack it back hard. You just a light trim to. So if your orange has reached the sort of the size that you require, just start trimming it lightly each year. And a good time to trim, particularly if you're going to trim a little bit harder, would be end of August.
Perfect. Sammy got a dwarf lemon tree 5 years ago, sees sunlight, been watering it, and it grew but with no lemons.
Okay, well, sea sole, I talked about, not sea sole, what is it, Miracle Grow. Miracle Grow is what I would do is maybe repot it, bit of fresh potting mix, good dose of Osmocote, and then once it gets going in springtime, start a weekly in the cool of the morning, a weekly light watering with Miracle Grow. But get it beefed up now, and then hit it in sort of like end of August, beginning of September, every week with just a light application of Miracle Grow over the leaves through a watering can early in the morning when the evaporation rate's low.
Yeah. What is the best hedge for clay soil that has movement and lets light come through?
Interesting question. Movement and lets light come through. Clay soil. So, I guess bamboo is great in the clay. Bamboo, and it's a matter of working out which height of hedge you wanted to have, and then there's different bamboos that grow to different heights. But bamboo lets you light through it, and it has the movement in it. So bamboo would be my first thought there. And then apart from that, you might use some sort of deciduous tree, like but you would tend to get fairly big, but maybe like a type of silver birch or an ornamental pear or something like that. And again, you'll get movement, you'll get light through, but they might all be too big. And if you wanted a lower hedge, there's a wonderful thing called a 9-bark. And a 9-bark is about a 1.5 metre shrub, comes in different colours, has beautiful movement in it, lets a bit of light through, drops its leaves in the winter, but it makes a really different sort of a hedge. It's worth looking up 9-bark and have a look, and they come in orange, red and yellow leaves, and there's even a green leaf one, and they're really fast and easy to grow and really good to grow under other deciduous trees and things. So 9-bark would be another one lower, or if you went taller, you look at your ornamental pear, or you might look at a Prunus oakville. Would be good as a sort of a medium-y sort of a tree that's going to have movement and let the light through.
Beautiful. Any recommendations for a planter box in Canberra weather? It's next to their lawn.
A planter box connected to the lawn?
It's next to the lawn.
Next to the lawn.
In Canberra.
You're in big frost country there. And so things that could look really good in there would be your New Zealand coprosmas, things like you've got Caro Red, which is actually not red at all, it's purple. You've got a lemon lime coprosma, you've got your tequila sunrise, and you might pick 2 of them and fill it up with nice contrasting ones. And if you wanted a little bit of height, if you want a little bit of height, a little bit of excitement in there, you might throw something like a standard bay in with the coprosmas underneath. So that would be one possible approach. Another approach would be something like berberis, and there's some beautiful berberis are a small bush with prickles on them, lovely fine foliage, and you can get them in golds, purples, pinks, all different colours, and then they'll have fabulous autumn colour, but they do go bare in the winter. And so the advantage of the coprosmas that I was talking about is that they, instead of going bare, they actually become more and more colourful as they get colder and colder through the winter.
Perfect. Andre would like to know if they can plant the bush roses at this time.
Yes, it's not a bad time. What you've got is most of them have got flowers on them at the moment, so you can have a smell of the flowers, look at them, choose your flowers and plant them now, and you'll find that you'll get planted now properly, you'll get a 100% success rate, and they'll romp away in springtime and deliver flowers nice and early.
Beautiful. When should all the leaves of a nectarine tree brown and drop off a tree? Mine dropped about a month ago and now it's quite bare.
That sounds bad. I would like to see mine drop in April, May. And I wonder, did you have excessive dryness or excessive wet? The sort of thing that would cause that sort of thing would be excessive dryness or excessive wet. And so I'd have a dig and have a look. And look, there's a chance it may shoot back in the spring, but there might be a chance that it's gone too, losing its leaves that early.
And following on, more questions about the nectarine tree. This year produced a lot of fruit, but they were quite small and bitter, and the seed inside was split. Do you know what might have caused it?
Well, that's small. Small would tend to be a lack of water. Bitter would be a lack of the correct nutrients. So you might do a pH test, add some compost around it. The other thing that would make them small and bitter is if you had all grass and weeds growing around the base and didn't have. They like to be in a mulched or cultivated bed. So mulched or cultivated, lime if necessary, water and fertilizer should give you big sweet fruit.
Amazing. How can I get rid of mondo grass easily?
Mondo grass is a bulb, and the bulb is just beneath the ground. So if you get a shovel and you sort of slide it under it, and you make sure you locate the bulbs and slide in under the bulbs and lift it up, it's gone.
Yeah.
Even if there's a bit of root left there, it doesn't matter as long as you've got those bulbs.
Yeah. How would I go by taking my fruit trees with me to my new home from the ground?
That can be done as long as they're not too old, like taking a really old fruit tree. I remember I once dug up a 10 or 15-year-old persimmon, and it was a day's work to dig and replant. It was a day's work for two blokes working really, really hard, you know. So because we had to dig a very big root ball for it. But if they're not too old and you dug them up with plenty of root, maybe a little bit of soil, and then planted them and made sure that they went into do a nice mound, plant them into a nice mound so they're really well drained, of loose soil, so they're really well drained, not too much fertilizer or anything, they'll transplant beautifully. But I would tend to think that really old and established fruit trees, the effort probably doesn't make them worthwhile. But smaller fruit trees, great idea to move them and just dig them up, and at the time for shifting something like that would be June, July and August.
Yeah. I have a box full of carnation seedlings. Any tips when it's time to plant?
You could plant them now, and you're probably not going to see much action till springtime, but they'd be rooting and getting established, so now would be a good time.
Yeah. Lachlan would like to know, what are some good small plant and ground cover options to complement a weeping cherry garden bed?
We've got a video, I think you shot this video, and it was the snow in summer, and that video has been a real hit. People love it, and why the snow in summer is good is that under this, like what will happen when you plant your weeping cherry, on one side of the cherry is going to be real hot and sunny, the other side is going to be shady, and you want something that performs well in the sun and the shade. And so something like your snow in summer, beautiful carpet of silver all year, and then in late spring, fabulous show of white flowers. So that's a really good perennial. Another interesting idea is, depending on whether you've got a white or pink flowering weeping cherry, is I've never actually done it, but I've often thought it'd be great to use Bacopa, because Bacopa has its best flowers at the end of September, right when the cherry is madly in flower. So what would look really nice isn't so much to match pink, you can get Bacopa in pink, white, purple and blue, but if you had, say, a white weeping cherry and you put a pink Bacopa underneath it, it would be magnificent. And if you had a pink weeping cherry, you put a white Bacopa underneath, that would be magnificent, and the flowers would be peaking right when the Bacopa flowers would be peaking right when the cherry is really peaking. So that's, but something like the snow in summer makes a very hardy, last you for years, low maintenance, beautiful cover under your cherry, and you can see that on where would you find that?
Probably YouTube would be easiest, just use the search function.
Yeah.
Just because it was posted quite a while ago. So I'm not entirely sure what the video would have been called, but maybe if you look up snow in summer, you'd have a good chance of finding it. The next question is from Casey. I'm on a high side of a timber retaining wall and have a pool within 1 meter of the wall. Looking to plant heliconias, will the root destroy the wall or the pool?
The heliconias should be fine. The only problem is that I would hope you're in northern New South Wales or Queensland, because heliconias don't overwinter in Melbourne or southern New South Wales. So you need to be in a sort of bit of a subtropical mild winter kind of a location, otherwise heliconians are a bit of a waste of time. And what you would use instead of a heliconia is you would use something like a ornamental ginger if you were down in Melbourne.
Yeah. Next question is from Sols. Do you have a service available to help me with my garden?
Well, we've got like lots. If you come in and get and ask for the staff for help, there's lots of help here. And then for more intense help, we've got the free garden design where you pay a small deposit, and then when you buy your plants, you get that deducted off your plant purchase. And I reckon that is a really, if you're a bit lost, that's a really good starting point. And then often, depending on the job and where you live and everything like that, very often we could recommend somebody who can economically complete that garden design.
Beautiful. What companion plants should I grow next and around roses?
Interesting question. I've heard that marigolds are really good for getting rid of bugs and things like that. But from an aesthetic point of view, around roses, I tend to plant dwarf lavenders. I tend to plant blue or white, and I love blue. It goes with nearly every rose. The blue or white convolvulus, love it under the roses, and catmint. And so the blues and whites tend to really lift the trick with roses, and that's why marigolds, although they get rid of the bugs, marigolds are sort of like trying to star themselves. Whereas I like to put flowers with my roses that are a support or an aesthetic support to the rose, but not trying to outshine the rose. So it's things like your blue and white convolvulus, your catmint, and your dwarf lavenders are sort of complementary, and they don't outshine. They allow the roses to be stars, and that's why I like those particular ones. They seem to go really good with roses.
Amazing. Gabrielle needs a screening plant to fit a narrow strip beside the driveway of about 60 centimetres for a native garden, and it has to be frost tolerant.
Right, okay. 60. So we've got a 60 centimetre wide thing, and something that would do 2 metres. Something I really like, and it's incredibly hardy, very, very frost tolerant, is Dodonia Mr. Greensheet. And it's fast growing, doesn't need good soil, doesn't need a lot of water, but really green and lush and thick and bushy, really blocks out the neighbours. So that's Dodonia, a little bit hard to get, like it's not a common plant, it's not one that everybody has, it's a PBR. It's probably slightly more expensive than some of your other natives, but Dodonia Mr. Greensheet, lovely plant.
Yeah, perfect. Katie has an established magnolia little gem that she brought from a nursery. It still has a stick in it that supports it. She planted it about 6 months ago. How long until I can take it out?
Give it another 12 months.
Okay, great. Next question is, my basil seedlings are drying out and going brown suddenly. Could this be due to poor soil in my pot?
Yeah, look, your basil loves good soil, and what I would do is I would use some liquid fertilizer like Power Feed. I would use more water, and maybe even if you're planting them in the garden, mix in lots of potting mix so they've got some beautiful soil and a bit of, do 50-50 potting mix in your soil, so there's a bridge from the potting mix that's around them to your soil. They've sort of got and then something like Power Feed will give them instant instant growth, and a bit of Osmocote will then sort of back it up from behind.
Yeah. What's a good hardy drought-tolerant plant with colour in a shaded garden bed?
First part of that question?
A good hardy drought-tolerant plant with colour in a shaded garden bed.
Right, okay. So your Laura Petalum, one of the best coloured ones, is Plum Gorgeous. Now I planted them in some very, very shady gardens, and they really hold their colour. But all of the Laura Petalums will hold their colour in a shady garden. Another thing, one of my customers gone mad, he's bought hundreds of them, he's got a very big garden, is the Irisine Bloodleaf. And that's a beautiful purpley red in quite deep shade. And then another one, I just did a garden design just before, and they had a rather dark sort of garden bed with trees over the top of it, and I used a Belia Kaleidoscope, which is, actually I've got one here. We used this was just left over from the last garden design, a Belia Kaleidoscope, lovely and bright to put in a sort of a dark corner. And what all of your Plum Gorgeous and your Kaleidoscope, what's good about them is they give colour 365 days a year. Now another really old-fashioned way of putting colour in your garden, so that gives you, we've got 1, 2, 3. A fourth one would be a Cuba japonica, a Cuba japonica gold dust. There's a couple of different ones, but a Cuba japonica has a lovely big leaf with lovely bright golden spots all over it. Really, really nice. And it grows about 1.5, 2 meters tall. And it just, if you put that in a dark corner, it'll just light that dark corner up. So that's 4. That's a Cuba gold dust, kaleidoscope, plum gorgeous, and irisine bloodleaf. So 4 really, and if you used all of those together, it will be almost psychedelic, that corner of the garden.
Amazing. I also just want to say, Geoffrey, I haven't skipped your question about the lemon tree. I just haven't gotten up to it yet. I read the comments just in the order that they come up, and we are on different platforms. So if you see me asking a question that you can't see, it's probably because I'm asking it from another platform. Moving on to Ralph's question, which is asking if he should turn over a new leaf and become a horticulturalist. Is it true that times are so tough that even desert flora sales a cactus? It's asking you to become a horticulturalist.
Yeah. Well, there's probably horticulture. The greatest horticulturalist of all time is, what was his name? I've got his book upstairs here, his encyclopedia. Burbank, Luther Burbank. And Luther Burbank was in the top 10 richest men in America back at the turn of the last century. And he bred, and basically I believe that more than any other individual person, he's responsible for the wealth and success that you have in America, because he helped America transition from where people had barely enough to eat to where they had an abundance of, and he developed the modern blood plum, the modern petunia, the modern. He's got to put out a set of encyclopedia. He put out a set of encyclopedia with maybe 10,000 experiments in it, like just incredible amount of work that he did. And he actually, so the wealth of a country, almost more than anything else, is dependent upon horticulturalists. And it's not just like money wealth, it's like the environment. Horticulturalists actually help modify the environment to make the environment more livable. Like the Dust Bowl in America was cured by horticulturalists working out what to plant to recover that dust. So horticulturalists are responsible to great horticulture feeds people, provides them with resources, and provides them with a wonderful environment. And if you were to look at if you read up on Luther Burbank, and he's my horticultural hero, you can see how much a horticulturalist can do to change a society and change everything around us. And I think that more than almost anybody, more than Henry Ford, I think Luther Burbank made America the way it is today, because he got people fed, and he also got them into aesthetics. He invented the Shasta daisy, the modern petunia. He created aesthetics, and he created wonderful foods and highly productive plants that made America. People were liberated from the fields because he increased production. He made modern wheat, and he made the modern potato. So horticulture is a much more important thing, and it's a very, very much more worthwhile thing to be doing than most people realise.
Well, there you have it, Rolf. Maybe you should turn over the new leaf. The next question is from Geoffrey. My lemon tree is struggling. How deep / often should I be watering it?
If you're watering it really, really well and really deeply, and as we head into the sort of the cooler autumn weather, every 4 or 5 days, a good deep water would be all that you would need. But I'll tell you a little story. I love a little story. When I was a kid, we had this miserable yellow lemon tree in our backyard, and it was hard to go out and find a lemon at any time for my mum. At any rate, one day my mum read up on how to have a wonderful lemon tree, and she put us kids to work. And what she did was our lemon tree had lawn right up to the base, and she made us remove the lawn for about 1.5 metres around the diameter around the trunk. So we had a 1.5 metre cultivated circle. She then made us put about a foot deep of really good compost from our compost heap all around the lemon tree, but not to cover it. It was like done like a tie, so we didn't cover the graft. and 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 we had it nicely cultivated. We had this beautiful layer of compost. And what happened was that tree turned, over a couple of months, turned dark green. It flowered, lemons formed everywhere, and we really did nothing to it for years after that. And it just produced endless lemons. It became this beautiful dark green tree covered in lemons, and I remember digging. We'd be looking for worms, to go fishing, and digging under the lemon tree, and it was hard to dig there because all the roots had come up and grown up into the compost. And so I've done that a number of times since with lemon trees, and they love to grow up into, and they love to feed on compost. So lemons, as my mum said, lemons are what you call a gross feeder. They need lots and lots of tucker. And these days, what I do when I put compost, and you put a thick layer, but if what I would do with lemon, I'd cultivate all around it, nice big round circle, as big as I could make it. I'd actually sprinkle quite a few handfuls of Osmocote around it. Then I would put my nice rich compost all around that on top of that, and you'll find within 6 months the roots will have gone right up through that compost. Your tree will turn dark green. It'll start to fruit, and it'll be fabulous.
Fantastic. All right, next one is any recommendations for a variety of grass that you would recommend for someone in Bacchus Marsh? I'm using sandy loam as the base.
Right, actually, sandy loam in Bacchus Marsh, you notice as you drive through Bacchus Marsh, there's lots of lawn farms. And I think to play and live and work on and do things on, I reckon that your buffalo grass is really, really good. And then,
they also have volcanic rocks as upcoming lawn boundary.
Right, okay. So I think that your buffalo grass, lush and deep and really, really good. But on that sandy loam, it's in the bottom of Bacchus Marsh, it's really fabulous. But then if I had a very smart sort of a house, like really, really smart, and I wanted something really slick looking, the Tiff Tuff can't be beat. It's beautiful. So Tiff Tuff for something smart, and buffalo grass for kids to play on, people to party on, just sort of as a grass to live on.
Yeah. My olive tree's gone bare. Is there any way I can fix this?
That's olive trees shouldn't go bare. Now I wonder what's happened to the olive tree. Like if an old olive tree goes bare, you're really in strife. If you just have an olive tree in a pot and it's gone bare, you probably neglected a bit in the summer. And it's probably time to even buy a new olive tree. So a naked, leafless olive tree right now is pretty bad and probably needs replacement.
Yeah.
But if it was a beautiful old olive tree, I'd have a dig around it. Maybe some water, some fertilizer, and try and get it to reshoot. Because an old olive tree would have the ability to reshoot, whereas a small, young, skinny one in a pot, you'd pretty much toss it out and replace it.
Yeah. Christopher wants to know any recommendations for pest control for roses.
Okay. There's two areas that where the roses have pests. One area is fungus. Now when you get, and the fungus hasn't been too bad this summer because we haven't had much rain or humidity. It's been sort of hot and dry, and the roses haven't had many. You get spots and you get white mold and things on your roses, and you can mix up something natural. Would be your what is it? Starts with B. In France? You've got your Bordeaux. I just think the province of France. You can mix up and make Bordeaux mix and spray that on to get rid of your fungus, or you can buy a fungicide in Bunnings, and then the other problem that you have is insects, little sucking insects and little bugs and insects, and they haven't been so bad because we haven't had so much rain this year. But there you could use something very, very simple like dishwashing detergent with a bit of pyrethrum and just spray that over them, or you can buy a spray, from your local nursery that you can spray on your roses, which will be more of a really poisonous type thing. So doing it naturally, Bordeaux mixture and Bordeaux mixture for your fungus and detergent and pyrethrum to go a bit natural, or you can, like here at the nursery, we've got an all-purpose rose spray that gets the fungus and the insects, but it's probably not environmentally that wonderful, but it's simple and easy to use.
Yep. We're going to wrap it up there. I'll ask just one more last question, which is, I'm in South Australia wanting to plant giant birds of paradise. Any small tropical plants that are suitable for in between?
Small tropical plants in between birds of paradise. Something I really love is your yellow tropicana. Now, your yellow tropicana is not that small, but it's a lovely bright thing for putting in between birds of paradise. And let me think, what would be smaller than that? I'm imagining birds of paradise, you've got them out in the hot sun. What I often use around birds of paradise is I'll use the chalk stick, which is a sort of a bluey silvery, little sort of like bluey silvery fingers that grows about 25 centimetres tall and covers the ground. And that's a nice small plant, whereas your yellow tropicana, lovely contrast with the birds of paradise, but a little bit bigger.
Amazing.
So that's a couple of ideas.
All right, well, we're going to end it there. If we didn't get to your question today, please come to our live next Monday, 12 p.m. We do it every week on whatever platform you are on right now. If it is something urgent, you're more than welcome to come into store, call us, email us, anything like that. And we're more than happy to help. But we hope you have a lovely rest of your Monday, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Bye.